Welcome to the OneFix YouTube channel. I'm Craig, the Managing Director, and all I can say is like and subscribe because we're going to have some great content coming on how to do things, hints and tips on your PCs, behind the scenes footage, and loads more. So, yep, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to this LinkedIn Live. I'm going to be talking to you about Microsoft Copilot. If you're not familiar with what Microsoft Copilot is, it is a new-ish, it's been around about 3 months for small businesses, a bit longer for bigger enterprises, but it's a newish AI tool for Microsoft 365 users. So confusingly, as with all things Microsoft, there are lots and lots of things that they've now called Copilot. So a bit like if you're used to Microsoft's terminology around Teams, and you've got Teams for work, Teams for home, same with Outlook and all these things. They've done the same with Copilot. So you may have heard the term Copilot, but you may not be fully familiar with what it is, or you may be confused by what it does. So what I wanted to do today was put on this really quick LinkedIn Live, just to kind of run you through what Copilot is, how it works, and what it can do for you and your business. So first thing to be clear, Copilot is the product we're talking about today anyway, is Copilot for Microsoft 365. So as I said, they've got multiple products. You will see Copilot in Windows 11. That's a slightly different thing, but essentially all of these tools are kind of evolutions of something you may have heard of, which is kind of Chat GPT. So Microsoft invested in OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, and they've taken that kind of, we call it AI, but it's basically what they call large language model. They've taken that technology and they've built it into an add-on for Microsoft 365. And what it can do is a whole bunch of things. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to give you some live demos because it will show you. But they've built in these tools essentially into kind of Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and Outlook. And there's also a couple of other bits in the background to do with kind of Copilot Creator Studio, which is a bit more technical, and we won't go into that today. But what it does is it really, really helps you and your knowledge workers and people who are working with documents a lot to kind of really shorten tasks, so make things much more efficient, process and analyze data, and really save time. So I've been running it probably now I didn't jump on straight away. I've probably been running it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I think I've probably already saved the equivalent time to what the annual subscription would cost me. So kind of my usage from this point forward is paying me back. So I think there's been some stats done in America with some corporations using Copilot saying that they've increased efficiencies, something in the region of about 60%, which is a bit unbelievable. But they've in terms of where they found kind of time savings, it's quite impressive. So I'm going to give you a few demos of what it can do. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. So just bear with me for a second because I've just got to press the right buttons. And yeah, there we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off here with Microsoft Word as a plain example. So I think Copilot, first off, I'm going to say Copilot actually in its purest form, I think Copilot works best within Microsoft Teams at the moment. So within Microsoft Teams, Copilot will read and listen to everything that you're doing, and it will kind of pull out all of the transcription of your Teams chats, and it will bring together lots of information. So I'll show you Teams. I'm going to show you a slightly restricted version. I had a meeting a little bit earlier on with Jess in the office, and we've recorded that to use for this demo because I didn't want to kind of expose obviously any customer data or anything private. But let's start with Microsoft Word, because Word is one of those places where actually Copilot's pretty powerful. So I've got Copilot enabled. What it will do, first off, when you start a new document now, you'll end up with this kind of bit of background text here, which isn't really there. You don't have to select it or delete it, but it just tells you that you can either click that icon there or press Alt-I to draft with Copilot. And you've also got a Copilot button at the top right there as well. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an example as to how this can kind of really. So I press Alt-I. What it's asking me to do here is to kind of describe what I'd like to write, including notes or an outline, and Copilot can generate a draft to help you get started. So to save typing it all out, I've actually got something here that I'm going to use as an example. So bear with me and I'll just load that up. So I'm going to copy this in. So just in case it's small on the screen, I'll read you what I've got in here. So I've told it, and again, sorry, just take a step back actually with AI. So with, again, ChatGPT or any of those kind of tools, they always seem to work better if you tell the AI or give it a bit of a prompter around what you're expecting it to do and what you want it to be. So if I just said, write me this, it will do it and it will do an okay job. If you kind of set it up and you tell it, you are a financial analyst, you're an expert in stock picking, here's the details of this particular share, analyze it for me, it's going to give you better output, which seems really weird, but that's kind of how the engines and the technology works. So what I've put here is, you're a marketing executive for a mobile tyre fitting business. Please provide a handout we can give to customers to explain the benefits of using a mobile tyre fitter versus a traditional tyre shop. Please write it in UK English. And the reason I say please write it in UK English is Copilot does have a habit of coming back with Zs in words and things, so sometimes you just have to go through and just anglicize it slightly. But let me show you how this works. So I'm going to hit generate now. And all being well, being a live demo, this might go completely wrong, but what it will do, you can see now it says generating, pulling things together. And it will start to grab data and it will start to write this document, and you'll see it pull it together pretty quickly. So here we go, it's starting to actually create this handout for us. So what you'll find here is that if you've been doing any of this kind of stuff at the moment with something like ChatGPT, one of the challenges that you'll find with ChatGPT is that it will provide you some output, but you have to you have to kind of copy and paste that out, and you can't keep the formatting. So Copilot will write straight into Word and it will produce the formatting. So it's put this in as a headline, for example, it's put these in as subheadings. And again, I don't know how clear it is. Let me zoom it a little bit, but you can see basically it's pulled together a pretty good starting point from just a basic prompt. So you could go through this. If this was for your business, you could go through and go, actually, we don't do that bit. We'll just rewrite that section here. It's even put in a little contact section where you can change that and put your information in. And it gives you the option down here. You can say, it says, do you want to keep it, or do you want to, do something different? For example, make it formal. So we could say here, make it more playful. This needs to be light-hearted. I'll just press the arrow, and it will come back and it will refine what it's done. So we'll see what it comes back with this time, but it might come back with something. Yeah, why mobile tile fitting rocks and traditional tire shops suck. So it's now rewriting this document to a different form. So again, if you've used ChatGPT, this is nothing new in terms of what it's doing, but the fact that it's dropping it straight into Word, it's dropping in the bullet points and the formatting, is pretty impressive. What it can also do, assuming that you've got your documents in SharePoint or OneDrive, which again, if you're using this as a tool, most people will do. If I'm just going to say keep it here, and you'll see it. There you go. Let's drop that into the document now. If you're using OneDrive, you can reference a document. So if I just do a new document, I'm not going to do this because I haven't got anything prepped. But if I do Alt-I, you can see here it says reference a file, and you can click this, and it will pull you through some of the most recent documents you've got in 365, and you can type the file name there, and you can ask it to use that. So you could take a document, you could say, I don't know, here's the minutes from a meeting. Please create me a more formal handout for this, or here's a proposal from a company. Please distill this down into a one-pager I can give to all the staff, and it will create that and it will do it for you. And it does a really good job actually of that. So that's the main part of Copilot within Word. And I say where I've already had huge use from this is even things like, for example, creating questionnaires for particular products. For example, we have a VoIP service offering, and at the moment we have this process where we go back and forth asking customers how they want to set this up. So with the Copilot prompt, you've got 2,000 characters. So I've created a prompt there that kind of said, here's all the things we ask for. Please create me a questionnaire for this and give some examples and explain what the different headings, what's an auto attendant, what does hunt group mean? And it created this 3-page document that really outlined everything that we need to know. It needed, a tiny bit of tweaking, but essentially that process on its own probably saved, I don't know, the best part of 2 hours, just in terms of the time it would have taken to go out and pull all the information together, write up summaries of the different headlines, write something that really makes some sense. So it's an incredible time saver there when you're just wanting to create content and generate content. And it can analyze PDF documents as well. So if you're pulling in reports that you get from people and you want to, again, distill those down, it can do that for you. So there's a lot of power there from Copilot in terms of document generation within Word. I think that's one of its real strong points. You also have, if you hit the Copilot button here, you can it can help you with documents in a similar way to ChatGPT in terms of asking questions around documents and the style of the document and the wording and that kind of thing. So that's basically Copilot for Word. Let me just minimize that down again. And I will now show you an example of Copilot for Excel. Now, Copilot in Excel is good. It's a little bit more restrictive. So I've got some sample data here that I'm going to load up. Let's start with this one here, which is quite basic. I've got a project management document sample here. Now, the first thing to note with Copilot in Excel is that it can only work on data that is in tables. So what that means is that you need to tabulate your data. So to do that, you click into a table. I don't think this at the moment, although it's got kind of filters on the top, I don't think it's a table. So if you click anywhere into a format cell of data here and press Control T on the keyboard, it will jump into table mode. Actually, it's saying table design. So this is a table. So this is fine. We can start working with this. So on the top right-hand side, I've got a Copilot button. And that will pop out the side. Now, if I was to click out of the table, you'll see down here it pops. I don't know how clear this is on screen, but it will say here, select the data in a table. I can only work on an Excel table. So I'm going to click back into this table here, and I'm going to give you an example of what this can do. So this, if I zoom this up a bit, sorry, there we go. This is some sample data. It's basically an example project management data. So you've got project name, task, who it's assigned to, the date, how many days are needed, etc. So, and what it can do, to be fair, a lot of the stuff it can do is stuff that you can do, but you need to know how to do it in Excel to get the output. So what I can do is I can ask it a natural question. So I can just say, who has the most tasks assigned? And it's going to go away. It's going to work on it. It says understanding your data. Almost there. And it will come back with something, hopefully, with a bit of luck. Still thinking. Here we go. Okay, so what it's done is it's worked out top assigned to by the cell count of task name. So it's worked out basically who's got the most tasks, counted them up. If you wanted to take that table and put it onto a new sheet, if you press here, add to new sheet, it's going to create a new data sheet here, and it's done that count up for you. And it's come back again in natural language and said, Fiona, Mark, Rachel, and Sam are all tied for the most tasks assigned with 2 tasks each. If you wanted to get slightly more complex on that, you could go something like this: who requires the most total number of days to complete their tasks? And again, we'll let it go off and work that out. And with this one, we're kind of asking it questions that it should be able to work out from the data that's there, because it's got something there that says task, it's got something there that says days. Here we go. So it's worked out Wendy needs the most days to complete her task. She needs 60 days. So that's super simple in terms of the Excel stuff. What it can do is it can create formulas for you. If you need to ask it a question on how to create a particular formula to do something, it will do that. But I want to show you a slightly more complicated example, because this data set doesn't really lend itself to doing anything too complicated. So let me show you something else. Bear with me. So I'm going to open up now some sample data that is, again, let me zoom this a bit, call center sentiment analysis data. So what this is an example set of data from a call center where you've got name of a customer, the sentiment of the call, CSAT score, which is customer satisfaction, which is a score out of 10 from 1 to 10. Timestamp for the call, the reason the call was made, and again, city, state, etc. The channel, so whether it was through chatbot, call center, email, web, did it meet the SLA, how many minutes was the call in duration, and which call center took the call. So we've got quite a lot of information here, quite a lot of data that we might want to report on and manipulate. Now, this one I can see definitely isn't a table because it doesn't have the alternating background colors. So what I'm going to do with this, again, I'm going to click on a cell that's within this data, press Control T on the keyboard, and that's going to pop straight up with this create table. And Excel knows that that's the data, and it's asking me if it has headers, which it does, and it's ticked the box. I'm just going to hit OK. Again, you'll see it's now made the rows kind of alternating colors, and it's given me the little header drop downs. It means now I can report on this information. So I'm going to go back to find my Copilot button, which is on the Home tab. I'm going to hit it, and I am going to just move that slightly so you can still see the information. Okay, so this one, we're going to ask it a few more technical questions. And I'm going to have got these pre-prepared, hopefully. Let's have a look. So, okay, let's ask it which call centers are performing the best. So we want to know out of our call centers, which ones are getting the best customer satisfaction. So we haven't told it CSAT is customer satisfaction. It's got something sentiment there. So we're asking it a natural language question here, which call centers are the best? So it's having to really think about this and understand the data that's there, and hopefully it will get the right answer. There we go. So again, that's pulled back. Let me just add this to a new sheet so it can be clear. It said here, based on the average customer satisfaction score, the best performing call centers Los Angeles with an average score of 6. Here's a pivot chart I created to get the answer. We can stick that on a new sheet so that we've got that there. And it's created us a nice graph as well. So you can see really quickly, if you've got like kind of reasonably complex data in Excel, you can start to ask it natural questions to pull through the data. And it gives you some examples questions you might want to ask. So, what's the average CSAT score by reason as a column chart? Let's try that and see what it comes back with. So it prompts you to kind of hear some things you might want to do with the data. It's just going to generate that as well. And it does take probably 15 to 20 seconds, sometimes longer with bigger documents, especially if you're asking it to analyze quite large documents. Again, if you've had any usage of something like ChatGPT, you'll know that you have quite a limited set of characters you can prompt it. So if you're going to feed it a document to analyze, it's going to take a bit of time because it runs multiple kind of sessions to do that. But here you go. So it's created us another pivot chart. Let's put that on another new sheet. And again, here we go. We can see that payment questions have the best satisfaction, service outages have the lowest, but they're relatively tied. You can ask it again to run statistical analysis. So again, I tried earlier on and I asked it with CSAT, which does the CSAT correlate with the time of the call? Do longer calls have better satisfaction? And it kind of it produced a scatter plot and said basically no, there's no correlation. So I won't bother showing you that because it doesn't really add anything. But these are the kind of things you can ask it. So it's pretty clever. It can work through that data and work things out. If, for example, you wanted to, I had an example where I wanted to have a formula to work out how many working days there were in a month for a given month in a particular column, and it would spit back out the formula that I needed to do that. So for things like generating complex formulas or analyzing data in a table, it's pretty good. It won't set the world on fire yet, it won't build you an Excel spreadsheet, but it will analyze data, which is quite useful. Close that off. So I say the part that I think the real power lies with this is in Microsoft Teams. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to see if I can pull up on my other window, Microsoft Teams, and I'll just get the meeting that I need, and I'll try and show you an example of how that works. So let me jump into this, and I will just make sure it's right. Here we go. Right. So to access Copilot within Teams, what you need to do is first off, you need to have the setting enabled that allows calls to be recorded. There is also a background setting you can enable that allows transcription, and if the call is just transcribed and it's automatically transcribed, you'll have access to Copilot within the meeting. But once the meeting ends, you won't have access to go back and historically ask it questions. But if you record your meeting, so you use record and transcribe as the option, or just transcribe if you don't want the video, then you will have access to Copilot after the meeting. So what I've done here is I've gone into my calendar in Teams. I've gone to this meeting, which was booked today between 11 and 12. It's, in theory, still running now, but it was a 10-minute meeting before this LinkedIn Live. And I've clicked into it in the calendar. And what I've done is then I've gone to the recap tab, and you have to go to the recap tab, and that accesses Copilot for you. And what you will see is this is the video here. It's sort of standard, you would see this in the recap tab, but it's pulled in some AI notes. And again, what it said is that, Craig and Jess discussed preparations for a LinkedIn Live event. They discussed the login process and screen sharing capabilities. Craig mentioned 2 calls to action for the event, including a small discount on the license. There you go, letting you into a secret, and a deep dive into how Copilot works within an organization. Craig and Jess discussed preparations. It's repeated the same thing. That bit's not been so smart, but when you've got a bigger call, it will pull that through. But what it will do is it will pull out your follow-up tasks. So you can see here, it said, here's what we need to do for the webinar: prepare a banner with a discounted price, post a comment on LinkedIn to remind the attendees to refresh their page for Jess, tag people who expressed an interest but couldn't attend the live event and share the recording with them, task for Jess as well, and upload the recording to YouTube, again, another task for Jess. So when you have a meeting with lots of people in there, if you're in quite a large meeting, it will pull out all of these tasks and summarize them for you. What you can also do is, if you hit the Copilot button on the side, you can get this Copilot part here, and you will get access to this normally within a meeting if you've got Copilot running, and you can ask it, it says there, ask me anything about the meeting. Where, as it also says here, this is your Copilot. So if you have a license for this and you're running it within a meeting, no one else is seeing what Copilot is saying to you. This is your kind of almost like your private chat to the system within the meeting. But what it will do, for example, at the end of a meeting, before these notes have been generated post-meeting, but in the meeting itself, you could tell it to recap the meeting, and it's probably going to come back with a similar set of information that we've got here. But this is something really useful when you're running Copilot. Actually, if you've got a meeting scheduled for a time, at the last 10 minutes of the meeting, it typically goes, there's 10 minutes left in this meeting. Do you want me to run a recap for you and tell you all of the key points? So we'll see what it comes back with. And I suspect it'll be very similar to the meeting notes and the follow-up tasks. So here you go. So it's pulled back key topics about the StreamYard, which is the platform we're using now for the login, the call to action, replay and the multicasting options, preparation and troubleshooting. So it's kind of read through all of the transcripts and it's summarized through the key things that we need to do. What you can do is, if you're in a bigger meeting, and this isn't the best meeting kind of data set to use, but again, I couldn't use something that obviously has the potential of leaking any kind of customer information. But if you've had a meeting with a lot of Q&A between people, you can use the option here to suggest follow-up questions, and it will go, here's some things you might want to ask to clarify some points. You can also, if you hit the more prompts button here, it will give you some more ideas of what you can do. Get different perspectives by topic. You can ask it what questions in the meeting have been asked that have been unresolved. So again, when you've got these big meetings that run maybe for an hour and you're having a management team kind of meeting, it's incredibly powerful to be able to pull that information together. One thing that's coming, it's not quite here yet, I think it's launching next month, is the ability also to follow a meeting. So if you have a meeting in the calendar and you can't make it, but you want to attend, you can essentially kind of send Copilot to attend for you. What that means is that it will just sit in the background, but it will send you through an email that will recap all the things in the meeting. It will recap any key action points that have been assigned to you that you may need to take actions and steps on. So this part I found incredibly powerful. If you end up, you have staff members that have lots of meetings or get involved with lots of things, being able to kind of come out of the meeting and just go, crikey, just summarize me the tasks or get me the notes together. It saves a lot of time, but also it just means that those things don't get forgotten, or things that maybe got lost in the detail can get pulled through and pulled out. Another incredibly good thing, which I probably can't show you because it's got a good chance of surfacing something that that may be private, but if within here you have a Copilot button, it's slightly different. So this Copilot button here, you can ask it to, as you can see, this is the Copilot. This option, this Copilot here, which is from within Teams or accessible through Copilot on the web or through the Windows 11 integration when it knows you have a Pro subscription. This version here will can interrogate all of the information that you've got in Microsoft. So if you have, for example, a great example, if you have an upcoming meeting with somebody, you can go, I've got a meeting with person X. Please help me prepare for the meeting. And it will go through and it'll go, here's the emails that relate to that meeting. Here's some documents that might be useful. And it gives you all the clickable links to those kind of things. You can get it to draft. It gives you some examples here, example prompts, what's the latest from person organized by emails, chats and files. What should be on my radar from emails last week? And it will go through and look at your emails and go, here's some things that people have asked you to come back to them on that you haven't replied to yet. Summarize messages in Teams where I was mentioned this week. So all of this stuff in terms of kind of intelligent time management, especially if you're within the Microsoft ecosystem and you have your documents in SharePoint, is incredibly powerful. And you can also just ask it questions. So you could say, I don't know, find me any documents about a particular issue with customer X. And obviously, if you've got documents in the system that relate to that, it will feed them back and pull them through. So it's almost like a powerful search, and it's a search that can understand the contents of the documents, and that's the key. So versus a typical search where you're looking for keywords, here you can ask questions about the information. You can query what you have in 365. So huge amount of power. The final thing, and I haven't really prepped this one, but I should be able to show you something to do with it. If I grab this, let's grab this mobile tire fitting document and let's just save it into OneDrive. One key thing, as I said, everything has to exist in the 365 kind of infrastructure. So you need to be storing the documents in OneDrive to be able to use Copilot on them if you want to do something like query them. What I'm going to try, and this is going to be a real baptism of fire because I haven't really tested this to see if it's going to work. We can use Copilot in PowerPoint to that's a previous webinar. Let's close that. Start with a presentation, and what we're going to do is we're going to use Copilot to basically generate us a presentation. So now I need to give you a disclaimer here. Copilot generating presentations, you're not going to want to present necessarily what it gives you. It'll pull some things together. It will create some images, but again, it creates a good starting point of kind of a layout and the things that you might need and the key points. So again, we've got Copilot up here. And what you could do is you can either just say, create me a presentation about something, but I can say, create me a presentation from a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to create me a presentation from that mobile tire fitting document that we created. And we'll see what it does. It'd be interesting to see. So I'll just type mobile. Hopefully, it might not have picked it up into Teams yet. I wonder if I've got something else I can use. Yeah, that might be more challenging. Okay, let's see if it's come through yet. It can take a few minutes to get indexed and found into Teams. So let's do something from scratch, and I'll just show you what it can do as an example. So let's create a presentation about 10 top ways that a company can reduce their carbon footprint in the UK in 2024. Okay, there you go. That's off the cuff. We'll see what it does. So again, we're going to let Copilot here generate us a presentation. If it had worked with that mobile tire fitting one, what you'd have seen is it would have pulled out key points from the document and created a presentation framework around this. This one here, we're asking it to do something completely off the cuff. So it'd be interesting to see what this does. These take a bit longer to make because there are obviously a lot more kind of calls in the background to ChatGPT. Okay, so here we go. So it's made us a presentation. So you can see what it does do quite nicely is it also puts in some slide notes for you, but let's see what it's come up with. So it gives us a bit of an overview of what we're going to present on. Why do we want to do it? Okay. Benefits and challenges of renewable energy, sustainable transport, circular economy. And you can see it's gone away and pulled in some pretty all right pictures. That's pretty good. Carbon offsetting, employee engagement, measuring and reporting, and a conclusion. So, I mean, as a framework, in what was essentially a minute to create that presentation, that's probably all right. You could run with that. I mean, you'd want to tweak it. You want to put your logos and things in. You might want to change the style. You probably want to change some of the wording. But actually, again, just to get you started, it's an incredibly kind of powerful starting point to kickstart something. But if you do have a document, let's say, for example, you've got something very relevant to your business, you can drop that in and say, make me a presentation on this. And again, it will do a pretty good job. You can also flip it the other way and you can feed that PowerPoint back into Word and you can say, create me a one-page handout from this presentation, and it will create a handout summarizing the key points from the presentation that you might then want to print and hand out. So if you think about these things like this is where you can start to see how the power really comes in with Copilot and what you can do. Got a question come in. I'll just bring that to screen. Question from San. Are they AI generated images? Do you know what, San? That's a really good question. I think it's a combination, actually. So from my testing, and it's only been brief, what it typically has done is gone off and looked in the Microsoft stock library for pictures on the whole. I have seen it occasionally AI generate them, and you can normally tell because if it's got wording and writing within the image, it sort of looks a bit nonsense. So I think its preference is to find something that already exists in Microsoft stock. I think if it doesn't, it will try and come up with something. I have seen also on occasion where I've dropped kind of content in and it will come up with something and say, there'll be some slides where there are images and there'll be some slides where there's just no image there. And that seems to be, again, the case where it just doesn't have an image that fits and it doesn't go and make one. It just goes, no, there's just no picture in that particular slide. But hopefully you can see how this kind of, if you start to think about how this works, let me just bring myself back to screen. You can start to see how the platform itself is really going to enable you to start saving more and more time as you start to think of things that you have to create or reports that you have to do. I think for me, just the Microsoft Teams section here of kind of making AI notes, pulling out key information. That's incredibly powerful. It's also incredibly useful if you're busy and you actually join a meeting a little bit late, and let's say you're 10 minutes late into a meeting, you can jump up the Copilot tab on the side and say, I've only just joined the meeting, please give me the key topic so far, and it will give you a kind of a blow by blow, here's all the stuff you need to know to get up to speed in the meeting. So that's probably the most powerful part, I think, for me anyway. But the document generation side, again, just being able to create frameworks of things, being able to say, look, I want to produce some marketing content, I want to produce a handout PDF. It's incredibly handy. Got another question coming in, actually. Let's have a look from Joe. Hi, Joe. If you don't have the OneDrive or SharePoint infrastructure, can you still see this working by dropping files in, or is OneDrive basis a must? No, unfortunately, where you drop documents in, when you sort of say reference a document, that has to be sitting in OneDrive. You can't kind of upload it through. What you can do if you're not working in that environment, but you are using the Microsoft tools, if you did bolt on a Copilot license, is you could just drop in the documents you want to report on into an area of your personal OneDrive or a SharePoint, and report on them in that way. So if you don't currently have a full company structure set up where you're using SharePoint and OneDrive, you could drop documents that you do want to use Copilot on into essentially your OneDrive, which you would get with a Microsoft license, and use them that way. That will work fine, and that will work fine for your document generation and creation. You'll lose a little bit of power in terms of being able to kind of say, I'm going to have a chat with Joe Kingsnorth shortly. Please pull me in all the information that we've talked about in any relevant documents, because it won't have access to the relevant documents. But you'll still have the power of the creation of emails and drafting and all that kind of stuff. And actually, that's reminded me of one other thing that's worth very quickly sharing. Let me share off my screen again. It also drops into Outlook for you. So what you can do, and I've pre-prepped this just to save some time, when you start doing an email in Outlook, again, you'll see up the top here, you get a Copilot button, and you get two options here. You get Draft with Copilot, or you get Coaching by Copilot. This here is an example of coaching. So I've typed this example email here, and again, I'm sorry, it's a bit small, but it says, Steve, please can you provide me with an updated copy of the minutes of the management meeting from last month? I'm worried we may have missed completing some items from the agenda, and it's going to cause us problems when we have our next meeting, widgets incorporated. Thanks. So I've gone to coaching, and it's had a bit of a read, and it's gone, well, maybe you want to choose a friendlier tone for that. The email's polite and direct, but it could sound more positive and collaborative. So it gives you some ideas of what you can do. It will give you some feedback as to how you might want to change it, and you can actually regenerate and ask it to write the email in that format. So a little bit like if you've used Grammarly, it's quite useful if you have people who struggle a little bit with the tone in emails and that kind of thing. If maybe they come across blunt in an email, but they're really not intending to be that way, they can use this coaching to kind of understand how they might want to rewrite something. But also, you can use the kind of Draft with Copilot option where you just say, it says, what do you want the email to say? And you can tell it to write an email for you, and it will create the email. And it will read what you already sent in the email. So if you're drafting a response, you can let it do that. I must admit, that's not a feature I've particularly used myself, because I still like to write my own emails, but I guess you could actually use that. And yeah, I think we've had, there you go. Dr. Stuart Destin, this can actually make me appear nice. Yes, it absolutely could, Stuart. Yeah, you can absolutely use it to kind of temper sentiment. I think where I see that being really useful, and in all seriousness, is when you have those, we all get them, those kind of emails where you have to write something that maybe is a little bit firm and assertive, and you're slightly worried about how it might come out. The coaching part there is quite useful, just to kind of give you some feedback. You don't have to take it on board, but it's actually quite useful to kind of get a feel for how is this going to land, what does it look like, what does it feel like. So that, in essence, is kind of a real quick fly through on Copilot. So I really appreciate you spending your time with us. As you might have caught on the kind of the Copilot part we did through the meeting recap I had with Jess, there's a couple of things I wanted to share with you very quickly. First off is that we, with all Microsoft licensing, unfortunately there's not huge margins. We're not getting rich off them, let's put it that way. But we are able to give you a little bit of a discount. So Copilot, the way Microsoft licenses, unlike everything else, this is annual, which most Microsoft licensing is, but they do make you pay up front. And I think the reason why they've done that is that they don't want companies going and adding a license for every single member of staff, then realizing that some people don't get value out of it. So they've said, you need to pay, it's £296.40 plus VAT, that's for the year, and you need to pay that whole amount upfront when you order it through Microsoft or when you order it through us. We can give you a little bit of a discount. We can do sort of a 5% discount on that as a promo for kind of watching this LinkedIn Live. So we can offer it at £281.50 until the end of May per license. But more importantly, I would say we have a link. So you won't be able to click this because it's a video, but if you go to s.one-fix.com/book, you can book a 30-minute slot in my calendar. I would love to spend some time just to do a deep dive kind of on your specific use case, because this isn't for everybody, but I think there is a real application where it does apply for most businesses. We can have a look, we can run through some scenarios, and then what I would suggest is that you buy a license. Maybe just start with one and you assign it to a person, they test it, they use it. If they find it's great and they're really getting value out of it, then you can buy another one, assign it to another person, or assign it to a management team, or however you want to do that. The licenses do float in your Microsoft account. So, for example, if you assign that license to me, for example, and I leave the business, and you're still in the year, that license can be reassigned to somebody else. Or if you assign it to me and I find that actually, you know what, I don't like this AI stuff, it's not for me, you can remove that assignment from me and you can assign it to another staff member. So definitely not a good idea just to buy it for everybody outright. Not only is it very expensive, but I don't think there's necessarily a use case there. But I think if you identify in the business who are your power workers, who's working on a lot of documents, who's having to analyze and produce reports, who's having to be in a lot of meetings, because the Teams part will really save them time, grab a few licenses, drop them on, see how that works. If you're paying somebody minimum wage, then essentially you've got to get probably 25 hours of savings out of this for it to break even. And I think just on the times of kind of creating meeting notes and handouts after meetings, you'll save that within a few months. It's very powerful. So hopefully that's been useful. I hope you've enjoyed the brief run through. Love to have that deep dive with you. So please do use that. It's that way. Use that link there. Oh, there you go. Mirrored video. Please use the link there and get yourself booked in. I'd love to spend some time with you, just half an hour. We can have a run through and extend that offer to you then of those slightly cheaper licenses. And the final thing to add actually is that regardless of if you're buying your Microsoft 365 through somebody else at the moment, we can provide you just the Copilot add-on. We just need to kind of do a small process to kind of get associated with your account alongside your current provider, and we can just drop those licenses in. So there's, won't cause any upset. We can just add those on as a separate thing. We can extend that offer to you. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hope you've got some value out of this. Please do pop comments below as well. I'll readdress those later after the LinkedIn Live if you've got anything else to add. And I look forward to hopefully having some calls with you soon to run through this with you. Thank you.